go live and just kind of amateur hour the whole thing of it, because it wouldn't be Tubbs without us being late and without us being, woefully unprofessional. Like, this fucking thing has been going live for 12 seconds already, and I haven't found our intro video. There we go. Welcome back, Midi Vandals. Tubbs at the club, back from our summer break. We are the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your most of the time host, Dallas Hammer, joined by brave, bold Brian Marceau.
As always, dude, great to be back.
Yeah, wonderful to be back. The summer is unfortunately over for those of us in teaching or with spouses with teachers. And yeah, summer is coming hard to an end, boys and girls, but that means that football is right around the corner. Brian was at Media Day on Monday, Big Sky Media Day, brought to us from the lovely Northern Quest Resort and Casino in Airway Heights, Washington. Brian, anything you want to prelude this with, or you want to just jump right in?
Yeah, so one, we're structuring this kind of like our own mini media day, where I interviewed Tom Wistrcill, and by the way, I also interviewed Thomas Ford, Nate Azzopardi, and Sam Brown. So all University of Idaho dudes. For those who don't know, I don't know how you would not know, but we're gonna jump to the Tom Wistrcill interview in a second. But one thing I do want to bring up, because we're not really gonna circle back to this for any reason later. Idaho stood out as being just on point in every way possible throughout Media Day. I mean, if you want to talk about style, which, I mean, hey, Idaho did that last couple of years with Jason Eck, where dudes come out in a tux, but like, it wasn't just a style. It was also, I mean, hey, AC was running the show for Idaho. Yeah, he's taking care of football as SID now. And guys, enjoy AC while he's here. He's a pro. He's not going to be at Idaho very long, but Idaho had the single busiest booth during their section. And by the way, that included time with Montana as well, shared time. Idaho was far and away the busiest section. AC was great at circulating media. So there was always someone in front of one of the players or coaches, and no one was there for too long, but people got their questions done. So, Idaho just kind of kicked ass there. Plus, we don't have a reason to talk about this again later, but just before Sunday, the 20th, it was announced Idaho won the President's Cup for the first time in school history. And if you don't know what that is, it's an award. It's given in the conference. It's a combination of athletic achievement and academic performance, things like GPA in Big Sky sponsored sports, APR, as well as your performance. So huge deal for Idaho to pick that up, especially when you factor in that volleyball is obviously tanking Idaho quite a bit. But Idaho, to me, won media day for what that's worth. The Vandals were running on all cylinders, and the players were far more engaging on the Idaho side than pretty much any other booth as well. That's what I mean when everything about Idaho was on point. So we're going to get to Tom Wistrcill because he had some really interesting stuff that in my sit down with him, but we've spent a lot of time talking about when, some stuff for Idaho is not working, and we're going to continue to do that when it happens. But media day was not one of them. AC ran that perfectly. Thomas Ford, Nate Azzopardi, Sam Brown were fantastic participants. It's hard for Idaho to have done better than they did.
Yeah, Idaho looked great on media day. Shout out Jewelry Design Center. I saw Sam Brown tweet about the very nice watch he was wearing. Cool to see that. Obviously it's the local event for Idaho and Eastern, but it's still nice to see Idaho showing up and showing out, especially when we like to consider ourselves the cream of the crop in the conference. That going hand in hand with winning the Commissioner's Cup is pretty cool. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, lady and gentlemen, because I don't know if there's many ladies that watch. I think I can count them on one hand. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Tom Wistrcill, the Big Sky Conference Commissioner.
All right, we've got Big Sky Commissioner Tom Wistrcill joining the show. Tom, good to see you.
Great to be with you. Hey, we're ready to kick off the football season. Let's go. I'm fired up. Are you?
Dude, absolutely. Almost the best time of the year.
Great.
Late August, September is the actual best time of the year. But if we're in the summer, it's the best we get.
We're getting close. I'm ready to get to Moscow and get to Tubbs and have a cocktail or two here soon. So looking forward to the season kicking off.
So, okay, big questions to have for you have to do with in your State of the Big Sky announcement, which some of this we knew beforehand. You talked about two things that are going to impact schedules. The first one is the Big Sky. Now the FCS season is 12 games. The Big Sky has opted to go from an 8-game conference season to a 9-game conference season. What was your math on choosing to extend the conference season versus allow teams to extend the out-of-conference season?
As you know, we have a hard time getting teams to come west and play non-conference games. It is a huge battle. I hear it from our coaches and our ADs all the time. The challenge of getting home and homes against quality FCS competitors. I think there's two reasons. People east think, out west is across the ocean, right? Which drives us nuts. And then secondly, those teams have a really hard time beating our teams when they come west. So they're like, we really don't want to come west. And so your choices are limited then if you're going to keep it a non-conference game. When you have a larger conference like us, playing conference games is good for increased rivalries. It's good for revenue. And the closer you get to playing everybody, the closer to champion you get at the end. So it was a pretty easy decision for us to go from 8 conference games to 9s for those reasons.
Was there any consideration that for playoff purposes, extending the Big Sky season by a game guarantees every single Big Sky team plays an additional FCS game and not a D2 game, or not a bye game P4 where it's essentially a guaranteed loss for the money?
We talked through every scenario and every option as we made these decisions. Like you said, guarantee games, non-D1s. We had a long discussion about the fact that when you play another conference game, that means half the teams get a win and half the teams get a loss. and how that impacts the selection process for FCS. Luckily, we feel like the strength of our conference helps carry that through, because some teams are going to get a quality loss, but others are going to get a really quality win. And we think in the end that's the best decision for us.
So Utah Tech and Southern Utah will be Big Sky members, full members as of 2026, correct?
Correct.
So what was the math from the conference's end on extending invites to both those schools?
We knew that SAC was leaving for about the last year. It was just a matter of when. So we had a lot of discussions with our presidents and ADs about, if this happens, what are we going to do? If that happens, what are we going to do? As we played out the scenarios around SAC's departure, the decision was a couple things. We at least needed to bring one school in for sure. And because of not being able to predict the future very well, what that holds with other membership moves, other changes that could happen, because we had two schools that were so close in proximity, 50 miles apart, in our footprint, had sports that we wanted, right? We, of course, wanted football and basketball in those, but we needed to shore up men's golf. We needed to shore up softball from a membership standpoint. It made a lot of sense. Plus, those two schools really wanted in, and financially it made sense for us as well.
Now, with the conference, I'm talking football. This will take the football conference back to 13 teams. Now, that also means the conference is going to have to redo schedules for the next handful of years. When schedules were most recently changed, one of the priorities was to make sure that every team is playing every team as much as reasonably possible within 4 years. How is does adding these two teams, does that change you guys' conference scheduling paradigm at all?
So you are correct that right now there is no 26, as we sit here today, there is no 26 conference schedule. We spent over 2 hours yesterday with our athletic directors walking through all these different scenarios of scheduling. Over the past few weeks, we've asked them to send us their top 4 preferred opponents in order so that we can start to build a schedule to try to give them as many of those as possible. And so we're in the process of going through that, but they have to make choices in that. The more preferred opponents, the harder it is to make sure that the rotation around the conference happens at a more timely manner. So Dan Satter, our deputy commissioner, is kind of a master at this. He's working really hard to help build this schedule. We're going to take it in 3-year blocks. So we're going to start with 26, 27, and 28 to build out that schedule. And we feel like we're going to be able to make a rotation where everybody gets to play everybody in those 3 years. Whether that can happen home and away in that time frame is going to be a challenge. But because we're going to 9 conference games, I think it might be doable. So we're like literally in the middle of doing that right now as we speak, trying to build that out, trying to balance out those rivalries with the rotation. And I'm encouraged by what I've seen. I'm encouraged by our ADs that have kind of been, good about, hey, I don't get everything I want, but if I get most of what I want, then that's good. And that's where we left the discussion yesterday.
Okay, so schools submit in order for preferred rivals or preferred opponents.
Correct.
Of those, how many of those 4 teams is it the goal that the conference is going to let teams play each year? Is it submit 4 to probably play 2? Is it submit 4 to probably play 3? Do you guys have an answer yet?
What we've promised the ADs is we feel good we can get absolutely everybody their first choice.
Okay.
We feel like we can get most of the conference their second choice as well. And then 3 or 4, who knows? But of the 4 that people are submitting, we feel good about everybody getting at least 2 of those. And then, if you play that out, because people will be playing 5 road games, 4 home games, and flipping it, then you can start to look at, hey, if this team doesn't get that rival, that preferred opponent in that, can you pick them up in year 3 of that? So that's, like I said, that's in real time happening right now. And we also know, and our goal is to make a decision on that in the next week, because our teams need to know. So in 26, week 0, which will be our week 1 now, we're going to play conference games that week. People are going to open with a conference game in 26 because it's a week that's clear right now, and everybody has non-conference games scheduled. We can't blow all those up in 26. But we want to work towards that not being a conference week. So sometime in years 2, 3, or 4, that will become non-conference week, and we'll slide that conference week in after that.
Okay, so with the 4 teams submitted, I'm just trying to restate this, make sure it's clear. It isn't necessarily that, hey, like for a fact you will get 2 of these and then like you will not get 2. The math is you're trying to pair as many as possible. You're pretty dang confident everyone will get at least their first, will probably get their first one paired.
Yep.
You think there's a good chance most people will get 2. But then for 3 and 4, are those kind of used, let's say, like advisory points for attempting to schedule further out conference games?
Kind of wild cards, I would put, is that you still might play those most years, but not every year, right? So, when you think about it, we're going to have, those 13 teams playing 9 games, right? So you can do the math as you rotate that through. There are obviously protected rivalries within it that are absolutely going to stay. Some of them are going to be the last games of the year. You could probably guess one of those well, right? And, but there are other things like, we might have had 5 schools that picked Idaho as their first choice. Well, they all can't play Idaho every year, right? The math doesn't math that way. So we're doing the best we can, knowing that, again, our goal is, I often make the phrase, if we're keeping people are 80% happy with us, we're doing a good job. We don't need anybody 100% happy with us, because that means somebody is less than 50. So we're doing the best we can with this. The nice thing is we've done this before with 13 teams, but we were only playing 8 games. Now playing that 9th game helps us.
Tom Wistrcill, Commissioner of Big Sky Conference, thanks for joining.
Great to be with you.
So 2 things I want to add to Dallas that Tom Wistrcill talked about in his address, which we did not talk about in our interview. One, the Big Sky has 4 ESPN2 games, which is the most of any FCS conference. And this was run already during spring ball. But the Big Sky Conference is going to start using coach-to-player communication devices via CoachComm. They'll be used for, there's going to be like 15-second gaps between plays when those devices can be used. So every team in the conference can use those. Kind of a big deal for both those. But Dallas, because I got to do a little editorializing when I was asking questions. Kind of the big takeaways for me in what I talked about with Commissioner Wistrcill was the Big Sky going to a 9-game season instead of an 8-game season. Your thoughts?
I think that's huge. He obviously mentioned that getting that extra good win for teams is going to be really important. On the counterpoint, there's also another loss that ends up on the schedule because of it. However, man, the points he made about the home and home FCS, we've seen that has been a struggle. We've seen obviously Idaho fitting those in under the deadline as they back out of the D2 game and get that home and home done very quickly. But it is so hard to get the East Coast FCS teams out here, and then you're shooting at the Pioneer League, which is again like the little sisters of the poor. Like that doesn't do anything for you from a competitive standpoint, but it does get you that quality FCS win. For me, just tacking on another Big Sky game means so much more than Idaho has obviously stepped away from this over the last few years, but Portland State scheduling Lincoln and nobody even knows where the hell Lincoln is. I'm sick of seeing that in the conference. I know that there's still going to be non-conference games for some of the lower end schools to still pick off some of those easy win money games. But man, anytime you're talking about the conference schedule getting bigger in a conference that's already probably too big, thrilled with that, especially when it does mean just an extra good game for Idaho to have on the schedule and not have to worry about. And you gotta get every single game right because you're kneecapping yourself with that D2 game. This just takes that possibility out even further.
Yeah, I co-signed on that. I like that it plays defense against conference schools scheduling those D2 games, like you said. But I will add as a caveat, this was a win to me for every Big Sky team except Montana State, because those are the 2 teams that can afford to pay schools to come out because of how much they make at the gate. But whatever. Like, honestly, Montana State has won most of their Big Sky games recently. Ditto Montana, so it's like a 1/3 loss for them. It's a win for everyone else. The other part, Dallas, was getting to redo preferred rivals. And you guys heard it, 4 teams in order. We know, because we've talked about this before, part of why the Little Brown-Stein game wasn't played last year. It's because Idaho did not put Montana in their top 2 protected rivals. This is back in Paul Petrino time. But Dallas, question for you. Rank your 4 teams that Idaho should put in order.
Montana, Boise State, Wazoo, Alabama. If Terry doesn't submit that, then she needs to be fired fucking immediately. If we're getting a redo on the Little Brown-Stein, that has to lead. Again, we, as you just prefaced this with, we did not have the game last year because it wasn't deemed a priority. In reality, Montana number 1, probably Eastern 2, ISU 3, Montana State 4 is probably where I'm at. I could go with Portland State in there just because of how close it is. There's a lot of Vandal presence. It's a lot easier to travel to than Bozeman many times. As Patty Frakes in the comment, and the comment section was pretty spot on with that. But as Patty Frakes says in the comments, Montana, Eastern, Idaho State, who cares? And realistically, that's pretty spot on. I think it's Montana or bust. I don't really care about the second game because that Montana game is so much more important to get on the schedule every year than all the rest of them combined.
We put this to a vote in our hashtag Only Tubs Patreon, our Discord, patreon.com/Tubs the Club to support the show. And the tiering in that voting essentially matches how I would do it, which is Montana was far and above ahead of everyone. Idaho State was then far and above ahead of the number 3 school, which was Eastern, which was far ahead of the number 4 school, Montana State. So those are the 4 I do. You could like sell me on doing Weber State over Montana State, or you could sell me. You will never sell me on Portland State being in that discussion, even if you enjoy the game.
What about Portland State in the top 5, Brian?
Well, of course. But the question wasn't 5. The question was 4. But we are 20 minutes in, dude. We've got about 20 minutes of audio to go through. Dallas, I'm going to throw the wheel back to you.
Great. Okay. So, guys, the audio quality here is going to be a little bit interesting.
I'm going to take the wheel back. This is 100% my bad, guys. So the short version of this is the microphone you heard in the Wistrcill interview. That comes across just fine. That's just my phone. We never need microphones for other people to use on the show other than Media Day. And we've been recording fine with like Jason Eck at Media Day multiple times. Idaho had different energy this time. Like there was just multiple conversations going around Thomas Ford every goddamn second he was out there, which is great news, unless you're low budget like us. So like, hey, spoiler alert, next year we'll probably buy a microphone. But I'm going to have to do a little interpretation of the Thomas Ford audio because his voice comes across to me okay because the microphone's pointed right at him. You're going to miss my questions quite a bit because Sam Brown's right next to me talking, and that picks that up a little bit. The audio following for Nate Azzopardi and Sam Brown, that's both fine too because we were able to step aside. But look, I felt like Thomas Ford hit on some stuff that you guys will want to listen to. And if we have to interpret a little bit of that whatever, I don't have a better option. Thomas Ford's a forthcoming dude. It's great to be able to talk to him at all, and we can't get him on the show otherwise. So the audio for Ford is rough. We will pause it periodically to try to interpret stuff just to make sure you guys can hear it okay. But what I'd recommend you guys do, just try to key in for when you hear Thomas Ford's voice. You'll probably lose my questions, but what you care about are his answers anyway. You'll put together what he's talking about as he's answering.
Yep. And again, we're going to try to pause after every answer and come back and discuss it a little bit since it is difficult to hear. We did our best to clean it up, but miracles can't be made when you're recording it off of a phone because again, we're historically too low budget to need a lav mic. But now
historically, it was completely irrelevant. But when I talked earlier about Idaho had a lot of energy at Media Day, I wasn't kidding. And our microphone picked it up peripherally during the Thomas Ford interview. So good news, bad news, right?
Exactly. Could be a lot worse. So Folks, as I get this loaded in here, because this Ford video is a little bit bigger and because we're going to be pausing it, I've got to load it into the show.
I got head coach Thomas Ford.
Looks like it loaded in without me even clicking play. So, can Tubbs put a comment what the question is from Jason Mayer? Brian, I'll leave you to that. I'll understand.
I'll throw it in. This is just my thing. It's how I try to get people to give specific answers. My questions tend to be short paragraphs. I'm not typing a short paragraph in every time, but I will put the core of the question in the comment section. Thanks for bringing that up, Jason.
Perfect. Without further ado, guys, here's Thomas Ford and also Sam Brown.
I've done in years past. I think the first question I got for you. We know not to fixate on goals. Preseason, if you're Big Sky 4 to 5, which where Idaho was, that slots you as making the playoffs, but probably not a bye. How does that sound on July 21st, 2025?
I think it sounds great. I was hoping they'd rank us lower. I want to be a team that's under the radar, and I think our guys do too. They love that underdog mentality, going into the season with a chip on their shoulder. So being ranked 4th or 5th, I still think gives us that ability, right, to really be a team that can play with a chip on their shoulder, because I think we're a much more talented group than to finish the season 4th or 5th.
Every team in the
Brian, I feel like that was pretty straightforward for the people, but do you have any clarification you'd like to add there?
Yeah, just if the audio is hard for you to track, Thomas Ford was fine with Idaho being picked 4 or 5, with that translating to making the playoffs without a bye. He said he wished it was a bit lower because it's an extra point to kind of sell that underdog mentality to the team. But yeah, he thinks he can still do that at 4 to 5, and he thinks the talent of Idaho most certainly surpasses just getting into the playoffs.
Big Sky. I mean, every team probably is going to say the same thing, that they're going to want to win the Big Sky, and we want to win the
what's Idaho doing to try to get the team as on the same page as
every day?
I think just having really clear expectations, really clear way of doing things, and how we attack each day. That's really what we're focused on, the process, right? I know that's a cliche coach speak, but it truly is a true thing here. We really believe in this motto of team, unit, me, right? Hey, what are we doing for our team? What are we doing for our unit? And what are we able to do to be the best version of ourselves so we can help the unit and the team? And so I think our group is really focused on how hard we can work every day. And I think with the talent on this team, I know a lot of, everybody talks about the guys that left, but we have 56 guys coming back. That's the second most in the Big Sky. And so I think our roster is as good as anyone's. We've got some really key transfers that came in at mid-year, and then we picked up a couple other key ones in the summer. And so having those guys all summer really working to gel together as a group has been huge. And I think our group is as together as a group as you can have in the Big Sky.
Brian, 56 players returning for the Vandals. I didn't realize it was that high. Obviously, we knew a big piece of bringing Thomas Ford in was going to be roster and trying to keep what Eck had built here. But in that long-ranging answer, 56 guys coming back second most in the Big Sky. Pretty nice for the Vandals.
So to contextualize this, and hey, AC was big talking about this too. The offseason narrative for Idaho was, hey, everyone's gone. And I think it became Idaho's narrative, not everyone else's narrative, because it was kind of a traumatic event in Idaho for the coach to leave. Then most of the guys who left pretty quick. Idaho, like Ford said, has 56 dudes coming back. Idaho State is the top with 60 coming back. Montana has 28 guys from last year coming back. NAU, who just barely squeaked into playoffs, 28 guys coming back from last year. Montana State, 43 guys coming back from last year. So I guess the point that Idaho was big on bringing up, and you and I, Dallas, when we talk privately, we brought this up too. We know everyone's lost talent that they have to replace. It does just seem the public perception of Idaho is they've somehow lost more than everyone else, but that isn't really the case. Idaho kept more of their depth than pretty much every other team in the conference, and the returning starters for Idaho are pretty comparable with every single team that made the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We'll obviously get more into the roster here as we get out of these interviews, but Yeah, very, very thrilled to see how Idaho's roster looked just coming into the season.
Who are the summer guys surprisingly you talked about? So
yeah,
which if you're following Idaho football, you follow spring ball. These are guys we haven't. Seen before.
Yeah, obviously Joshua Wood, probably being the top guy at quarterback. He's a phenomenal player. Even better human being. I mean, I think that's the best thing about Josh is he comes in. He has no ego. He just wants to learn. He just wants to learn his teammates. He just wants to be a part of what we're building here. And so I think it starts with him in terms of the transfers. Another guy, Zach Lustig. He comes in very highly touted from Portland State. Started 5 games there last year before suffering a season-ending injury. He looks really good. As one of the potential starters at safety.
I wish there was a lake in Moscow.
Is he at 100%?
Yeah, he's at 100%. Yeah, he's rocking and rolling. Looks like $1 million. Gabe Hoffman, a tight end from Eastern Michigan, who we have very close ties to. Actually, Gabe's first offer out of high school. Let's see, who else do we have coming this summer? We can't forget about Hyson Bolton, right? A starting corner from Furman with over 400 snaps last year for Furman. He's another guy that I think gives us great potential in the back end, that corner. Another tackle, Josh Macon. Josh is a big 300-pound kid that kind of helps elevate the depth in that room, especially giving us a heavier body. But those are really the guys that stick out to me on defense. There's a couple of offensive linemen. Garrison Hickle, he came from Indiana. Garrison's, he's 6'3", he's 315 pounds, got no neck. The dude comes in, he's like super explosive. So I'm excited about him. Caden Heckle came from Arizona State. Nathan Pritchard came from Washington State. So a couple other key additions there on the offensive side. So yeah, I think very excited about the group that came in this summer. Those guys have bought in right away. I mean, they're buying into the culture that our older players have really helped set up. So I'm really excited about this group.
So,
Brian, obviously we knew some of these names. Joshua Wood, we kind of broke that on the show as it was happening.
Yeah. There's more about Joshua Wood later in the interview too.
Yep, perfect. So outside of Joshua Wood, who is obviously the big name, and like we've been saying for a while, as soon as it was announced that he was coming here, even before it was announced, when it was Brandon Huffman just posting about it, Joshua Wood is going to be the quarterback. Health permitting, he's going to be the quarterback. Outside of the quarterback, Brian, what excited you the most out of the players that Coach Ford mentioned having come into the program?
I think hearing that Zach Lustig from Portland State's at 100% right now, because he was a Big Sky starter caliber player at Portland State, was a contributor on that team. And the single area that Idaho was most decimated in was the secondary. As far as it wasn't just transfers, it was graduation too.
Yep.
That where Idaho really got hit in. So Idaho had to go transfer for at least some of those starters or some of the 2 deep. So hearing about Zach Lustig, you guys are about to hear some more about Joshua Wood. But I guess, look, I mean, Ford's been open. He was open in the Coeur d'Alene Press about this too, that something really unpredictable have to happen right now for Wood to not be the starter. Wood was who Idaho submitted for their first team their preseason All Big Sky quarterback and Offensive Player of the Year nominee. So it's Joshua Wood.
Yeah, it's going to be the Josh Wood show, guys. And again, you're going to hear more about that.
Joshua Wood, unless Vandals watched last year's Potato Bowl, you probably haven't seen Wood play. What are some strengths he has as a player, and what areas is he still developing?
Yeah, I think his number one strength is his work ethic. The kid wants to be great. He's in there studying tape like an hour, 2 hours a day in the summer. And so that's without a lot of coach-led stuff, right? I mean, Coach Linehan's meeting with him sparingly, but he's doing a lot of it on his own. And so I think his work ethic really sticks out to me. Physically, obviously, he can really throw the football. He's got a strong arm. He can make all the throws we want him to make. And then he's a dynamic runner. Obviously played a lot in that role last year for Fresno State. But if anybody did watch the Potato Bowl, they saw a complete quarterback, a guy that can operate, a guy that understands pass protection, and again, can make all the throws.
Yeah, I mean,
go all in.
Ford a lot of things.
After the spring game,
Brian, that was pretty clear on Joshua Wood, and Coach Ford's quite bullish on him and his potential here. Any final thoughts on Joshua Wood?
No, I thought that was pretty clear. It was nice to hear him talk about Wood as both as a complete player and the work ethic thing too. We just don't know Joshua Wood, and Idaho's kind of been up and down reputationally with the quarterback as far as work ethic. Lane was like off the charts good. Giovanni McCoy was, we were told, not so great. So it's awesome to hear Joshua Wood's doing everything he can, before coaches are allowed to do work with him. So he's he's if he is 80% of what Thomas Ford has in other places said he's going to be, then this might be the best quarterback Idaho's had since Matt Linehan. That's a lot of hype. So not trying to set the stage for people to be disappointed or something like that. But there's reason to be stoked about Joshua Wood. It's great to hear that he's putting in all the work he can on his own, to reach whatever his ceiling is.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to me, Brian, that the Idaho is going into this season with it being a pretty open secret that Joshua Wood is going to be the guy. When first year, it was Giovanni McCoy going from fourth string in the spring game to starting week one. Second year, obviously McCoy comes back and is the starter, but starts to falter down the stretch. We start hearing things about Jack Lane in the background, and then Eck never says anything publicly about it, and continues to go on the we lost our quarterback, and now we're on to our backup, and we still almost beat Oregon, and Eck never played it up like there was a potential battle there. But it's very different to go into this era of Vandal football with a quarterback very obviously named as the guy.
Your interview said there were about 6 healthy O-linemen that played in the spring game.
One of the things that
how's the health of the O-line look right now?
It looks great. Obviously we're getting back a former returning starter, Charlie Green. Howard Stedford's a guy who probably could have played in the spring game if it was a real game. But having Howard back is huge. Adding those 3 transfers, I think, is going to be obviously huge for our depth and the competition. And then you add, 1, 2, 3, 4 freshmen O-linemen. So I think our depth and our health is going to be a lot better on that offensive line for sure.
Brian, obviously we have Azzopardi coming on later in the show, or quote unquote coming on later in the show. We've talked about the offensive line a lot. We know Nate Azzopardi is going to have a pretty big presence. We know Charlie Vleam is back. We know Leighton Vining's taken a bunch of snaps. We know Keegan Henson has taken a bunch of snaps. Maybe less than the other 3 guys there, but there's 4 guys that have some pretty significant snaps for the offensive line. Plus that with the transfers. Do you have any real concerns about the offensive line at the moment compared to where we saw 6 healthy guys?
No, and we're also going to hear Nate talk about it, so we can wait to comment until later.
Perfect.
Yeah, there's a few new coaches coming here with you as well. One of the big names, or exciting names for us, is Court Dennison. I guess, what about Court Dennison made you know he was the guy you wanted
for sure?
Honestly, his care for people in relationships. Court Dennison is a fiery guy. He gets real excited. He holds our defensive players to a very high standard and gets after guys. There's no mistake about that. Court's going to get after guys. But it's always in a respectful way and out of love. And I think that's what I love and respect the most about Court. He really loves these kids. He pours every ounce of himself into these guys, and that's what really intrigued me about Court. X's and O's, obviously, he's phenomenal. But at the end of the day, that passion that he had for the kids, the passion he had for the game was what really attracted me to have him be our DC.
What's going to look different?
Brian, I think Court Dennison is probably the piece of this team that I'm the most excited for. We know what we're going to get with Thomas Ford, at least from an attention to detail. Obviously, we saw it with the special teams when he was here. We all assume he's going to do a good job as the head coach. Had the one win at Simon Fraser, which is basically like winning the Super Bowl. But Court Dennison coming in as the juice that this defense, I think, desperately needed after last year's very, very conservative efforts. What are your thoughts on Court Dennison, Brian?
My thoughts are I want to let everyone listen to Sam Brown first, because Sam Brown talks about Court Dennison too.
Easy enough. We're obviously producing in public here, folks.
defensively right hard with Denison complex.
I just think we're going to have a lot of looks that are challenging for the offense, but very simple for our kids. He has a system that just allows our guys to play really fast, and it gives the offenses we're going to play a ton of looks. You're going to have a lot to prepare for when you play against the University of Idaho.
Yeah, I think we got really fortunate with
on the offensive side of the ball. You've obviously familiar with Matt Linehan, coached him for multiple years. You've described in previous interviews, in general terms,
some of
the offensively things are going to look
similar.
Obviously, some stuff is going to be
other
different.
things,
In your mind, broadly speaking,
on in
will
their
be
career,
different.
and I think
Matt Linehan calling plays.
Well, I think you're going to see some changes in the passing. You know, I think often in our offense that we had here before, we relied a lot on the deep play action game, which is great, and we're still going to do a lot of that stuff. But I think some of the quick game that he's installed, some of the RPO stuff that Coach Ensley has brought along with Coach Linehan are going to be some changes that I think are going to be really positive. Getting some of our really talented players the ball in some space, I think will be a little bit of a change as well. And so, yeah, I think Coach Linehan's going to do a lot of things similar, but his spin on it, I'm really excited about.
In what way?
Absolutely thrilled to hear that Matt Linehan is bringing new wrinkles to the offense, Brian. Sounded like a little bit more focused on the quick game passing rather than the deep setup play actions that we obviously saw. Maybe not as much from Lane since he missed most of the year, but we definitely saw Jack Wagner chucking bombs down the field fairly frequently. It'd be nice to see a little bit more of that RPO game sprinkled in there as well, just because there's three running backs that need the ball.
Also, for those who didn't hear, there were two questions in there. One was what's different about Denison, and Ford said lots of different looks they're going to give the defense, but they're going to give the opposing offenses. But at the level of play calling for the actual defense, like it's simple. So it's complex in the sense of many sets, but the sets are on the simpler side, and to expect that Idaho's defense is going to look faster this year. Co-signed everything you said about Matt Linehan. Hearing more about the intermediate pass game. And like you said, RPO, quick looks, get the ball to guys in space. It sounds a lot like taking a little bit of the Eastern Washington pass DNA from the last handful of years and letting Idaho do that, which it's worked pretty damn well there. And if you saw Matt Linehan play as well, I mean, this is something he was quite good at. So it's not shocking to hear like that's what he's changing.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the Eastern passing game, Patty Frakes in the comment section, RPOs take a lot of pressure off of a QB's arm talent as well. Fits a guy like Wood great, and he would know because Joshua Wood was once committed to Eastern Washington.
And returning upperclassmen, guys like Sam Adams next year, guys like Nate Azzopardi next year. In what ways have they contributed to being both emotional leaders and just getting this team ready as quickly as possible?
Having those guys is huge. You never know how kids feel about you as a coach till you leave, and just to have kept up with these guys throughout their season last year. When doing the right thing all the time, doing great stuff. I'm shooting them stuff on Instagram. Hey, man, that's awesome. Congrats. Sam, same way. So returning to those relationships was huge. And those guys kind of knew what they were getting when they were getting me as the head coach. And those guys echoing the message, holding other guys accountable, and then themselves working as hard as they can has been huge. I think it's a lot easier for guys to buy in when the veterans that have seen it all buy it.
So looking at the President's Cup trophy, to your left, which schools win the President's Cup trophy?
Missed that one, Brian. Any thoughts on Ford there before we get to the final question? You're muted, Brian.
Christ's sake. Okay, this did not come up on the camera, but I feel this is fine to say because just from when I was talking to Thomas Ford separately, Idaho felt great about their attendance at OTAs. I said all 16 OTAs were absolutely fantastic and exactly what Idaho needed from the upperclassmen and the new guys coming in. So the upperclassmen are doing exactly what you need them to do, especially in this era in 2025. So yeah, it's pretty much it. The last question is about Idaho winning the President's Cup and just, the overall, how you're understanding the overall status of how football contributes to the university as a whole.
James Aldrich in the comment section, death taxes and one of the guys being muted. A quick correction, 98% of the time that is Brian.
doing a lot of things right.
Yeah.
So what do you do
I
with
think
football's role
sometimes
within
over the last couple of
university
years,
Gosh, setting the school year off, right? I think when football is doing well on the field, they're doing things right outside of the athletic arena. It really sets the tone for the rest of the school year and obviously the rest of the kind of the athletic programs in the building. I think when we can be a model, just being so large, right? We have so many people. When we can be a role model for what being a Vandal is all about, right? Working hard, treating people right. I think it really does set the tone for the rest of the program.
To get to where the bullets are
Thomas
flying.
Ford, head coach, University of Idaho.
Thanks.
See you in August.
You bet, Brian.
Well, Brian, there we obviously missed the V's up, go Vandals from Coach Ford. But any final thoughts on your experience getting to speak with Coach Ford at Media Day on Monday?
One, I just love how open he is, within reason. But like I ask about the OC and DC, and he gives specifics about what is going to look different. I also thought his answer about football setting the tone for the rest of the university when football is firing on all cylinders, and he means both like on the field and the classroom.
Yep.
I thought that was an interesting way to hear someone phrase that. But like I look at how if you know Thomas Ford, if you have spent time listening to Thomas Ford, if you spent time around him, that's the kind of guy he is. He means it. So. No, dude, loved hearing what he had to say. I want us to make sure we can get the other two interviews on. They're each about 4.5 minutes. And they'd help further buttress some of the points I know people here want to hear about with the new coaching staff. But before that, Dallas, I think we have something to get
very quickly in the comment section. Not me commenting. Let's crowdsource a good mic setup. Again, I'm apologizing for that, everybody. We will get a lav mic at some point. You can hit us up on PayPal, Venmo, honestly, OnlyFans.
And not me. We use a mic once a goddamn year. That's why we haven't purchased one, because it hasn't mattered until it never matters until it matters, right? Well, hey, it matters now.
Yeah. So thank you, not me, for if we can get a crowdsourced mic, we'd love to get a mic to make sure that those interviews don't have that happen again. But we will look into purchasing one by next year. Before we get to Azzopardi and Brown, guys, if you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. And you could check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, Brian. Run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and like I say, almost every show, guys, fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes. HRE and Colin are going to handle everything else. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them out 406-540-4450. Again, 406-540-4450. Or check them out at hughesriver.com. Brian, we're going to just roll right into Azzopardi and Brown. Any last introductions you want while we just play those back to back?
No, they speak for themselves pretty well. I got Nate Azzopardi, offensive lineman, University of Idaho. Nate, okay, first question I got for you. I asked Thomas Ford the same thing, but at the spring game, O-line had 6 guys who played. What's the health status of yourself and the O-line as a whole?
Thankfully, we are all very healthy now, considering where we were at the end of spring. We got a couple transfers, we got a freshman, and as a room, we are very healthy, and I think we're full go heading into fall camp this year. So that's a great sign, and hopefully it can last throughout all of season, and we have no injuries.
You were one of the first. I don't know if you were the first, but you were one of the first guys who publicly announced coming back after Thomas Ford was hired. What did it mean to you to be able to come back, be a senior leader?
I never wanted to leave. When I committed here 5 or 6 years ago now, I told myself that I was going to go to one school and that this was going to be my home. And that's what I've always wanted, But unfortunately, after Eck left, we didn't have a coach for about a week, and I had to see what my options were. And so I did enter the portal for, I think it was a week, maybe 8 days. But as soon as Coach Ford got the job, I knew where my heart was, and I knew where I wanted to play my last year. And I was actively texting guys, trying to get guys to come back, trying to do anything I could to tell these guys, like, you know, it means something to finish where you started. You know, it means something to be loyal. And so credit to guys like, you know, Isaiah King and Emerson Cortez, guys that were in the portal and, you know, decided to come back for this year. And so I appreciate them. And again, I appreciate Coach Ford for just being who he is and, you know, welcoming all of us and really showing us the love that, you know, some guys feel like we deserved, you know.
So post spring ball in the summer, what would you say your role has been in trying to help get this team as ready as possible for August 30th?
You know, I'm the only captain that returned from last season. So, and I am the old guy on the team, unfortunately. So they do look to me in certain situations, but I've been trying to lead, obviously. I'm just really proud of the other guys, you know. We've had a lot of guys who might not have had a leadership role last year or had a minimal one who have really stepped up this entire offseason, you know. Guys like Jake Cox, Zach Krotzer, Dylan Lane, you know. These are guys that have really helped lead this entire year. You've got quarterbacks like Josh Wood and Nick Josephek who have done a great job of, you know, rallying everybody. And I just feel like as a team, we're really close and we're all focused on our one mission, which is to win a conference championship.
From what I've seen, from year one to Eck to now, the O-line looks like it's getting a little bit better each year. And as we've seen with schools like Montana State, if you're not strong up front, you are not going to win meaningful playoff games.
Yep.
So first question, preseason all-conference offensive lineman Nate. How's it feel to be honored?
Honestly, it feels good. I'm very I'm proud of it, but at the end of the day, it's about getting it at the end of the year when it actually matters, you know? So that's what I'm focused on.
July 21st, today, how do you feel about the offensive line as a whole? Being ready to contribute at a level to get to that final 8 again or higher? You
know, like you said, it's about running the football and stopping the run. I believe the game's won in the trenches. You look at Montana, you look at Montana State, you look at both Dakotas. You know, what do? They run the football and they stop the run. They're physical football teams. And I think that's what we've become. Like you said, I feel like it's been a steady climb, and I feel like we're about to hit the peak this year. And I feel really good about our own line. You know, you've got guys like Leighton Vining, Charlie Vliem, Keegan Henson, Tyler. Like, these guys have played meaningful snaps for the Vandals. We've got experience. We've got depth. We've got new transfers who have come in who we're excited about. And we're just ready to go, man. I want to run the football, and I want to score a lot of points.
All right, Nate Azzopardi, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, Sam Brown, University of Idaho defensive lineman, joining Tubbs the Club. Good to see you, Sam.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay. You've played under three DCs or 4?
3.
Okay.
Oh, whoa. 4.
Okay. So, Court Dennison, new guy. What to you stands out about Court Dennison?
I love him. I think his will to win is maybe the biggest thing. I love his scheme, but you guys will see him on the field. He's kind of a fireball. He's got some screws loose. It's kind of what you want out of a defensive coordinator, at least in my opinion. I always felt that more fiery guys were, you know, really passionate about it. Give you a good time.
Okay, so does that mean we might see a Vandal defense going to be a little more aggressive this year?
Yeah, I think so.
Not a potential last year, but is it going to be more aggressive?
I think so. It's a lot. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm allowed to say all this, but we got a lot more pressures. Still 4-man front, but instead of like a true base, a lot more nickel packages. So getting Ice out there, you know, kind of putting him in a good spot. I think our D lineman's going to be able to move a little more. You know, where last year we might have had a little more stout D tackles. I think we got a little more movement and a little more. I think the guys that are come back at D tackle are a little more play smart. They're going to do what they are supposed to do, which allows us to do a little more movement and stuff like that, and throw people in different spots, all that stuff.
So it sounds like you feel pretty good about it.
I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited.
So you're one of the upperclassmen who stayed the whole time. What went into your decision to stay?
Yeah, well, I just love Idaho. I think that's part of it. I'm a Spokane kid, so it's, you know, kind of close to home. Idaho's really given me every opportunity that I've ever gotten. I walked on in 21, and blessed that Coach Eck put me on scholarship in spring of 22, and so I'm just so grateful for the university, and I wanted to keep it going. I see some of so my future father-in-law is an old Montana guy, and I see how he is with all his old buddies, before the transfer portal, when they played all their years with the same guys. And, we got a core group of guys that I think we're going to have the same thing in 30 years from now, where we're hanging out, and it means something to be a Vandal. So that's kind of the biggest piece for me.
So this year, I guess as an upperclassman, I'm presuming that you've been one of the leaders in the off season.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, I think you're only a leader if guys want to follow you. But
okay, well, so what has that meant for you then in the off season, being one of the leaders of the defensive side?
Yeah, it's been cool. Just having a voice that people respect, and I kind of choose my battles. I think people look at me because I want to throw out the word wisdom, but I don't know if that's the right word. I'm not really a get up and yell at everybody kind of thing, but pulling guys to the side. I think people come to me when they have something, and so it's been an honor. I think with the experience I've had, I've been able to point guys in the right direction for sure.
I asked Coach Ford the same question. Being slotted at 4th, 5th in a preseason poll, not obsessing over a poll number.
Yeah.
Like if Idaho finishes there, that's you made the playoffs, but you didn't get a first round bye. How does that sound on July 21st?
Yeah, preseason polls. You haven't done anything yet, so they don't mean that much. But I've gotten the taste for first round buys, and I want to keep it going that way.
All right. Anything you want to say to listeners, Vandal Nation? You guys have fall camp starting not too long.
Yeah.
Anything you'd want to say to Vandal Nation about getting on board?
Yeah, well, big fan of Tubs at the Club, so I think everybody listening should come to games, and the boys love you guys. All the football players look at you guys, speaking highly of us for the most part, and we love our fans. So please come out and support us, and we'll support you however we can, and excited for it.
Yeah, we were lucky to have you all 4 years, man. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And we'll see you in August.
Thanks.
Brian, I'm just gonna jump right out and say it. As soon as Sam Brown graduates, fire Terry Golick and make him the athletic director, or mayor of Moscow, or hell, king of Idaho. Man, that got me fired up.
That's my reaction hearing both of them. This has been kind of my experience of thinking about Idaho football. And hey, full disclosure, guys, I had a super busy summer, so I had to spend a few days getting myself prepped for media day. Getting my head back into Idaho football. The more I spend, talking about the team, listening to players talk, thinking about the roster, all that, the better I feel about the upcoming season. Mm-hmm. Hearing Nate and Coach Ford talk about the health of the O-line, the development of the O-line, hearing Sam Brown say, in his own words, essentially the exact same thing about Court Dennison that Thomas Ford is saying and that other guys in previous published interviews have been saying. I feel good, man. That's why I said at the top of the show, I walked away from this media day thinking, look, this doesn't win you any football games, but for a program that's supposed to be in transition, like this team looks from the outside, this team looks really together, both on the image part, but also on the actual, like I said, Thomas Ford said their OTAs were fantastic. Talking about Joshua Wood on his own studying film so that he can hit the ground running and have a huge year. That all of those things portend positively. And hey, in the Tubs of Club poll we submitted, which was an aggregate, we had 47 voters. Most of them from our patron base, a few other guys, but like 2 people who weren't Tubs of Club patron members, had Idaho slotted 3rd at a virtual tie with Montana. So essentially as close to 2 as you can possibly be. Mm-hmm. I bet if we were able to run that after those interviews and after telling people like, hey, here's the numbers of returning guys on each team, Idaho gets easily number 2 some consideration at 1. Like, hey, Kevin Marshall in the comment section. By the way, Kevin Marshall is going to join us on Tubbs at least once throughout the season.
Love it.
Yeah, Kevin Marshall voted Idaho 1, and I said the closer we get, the closer I get to be like, am I being a fanboy now? But like, I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
What about
really
you?
Good. I feel great, and that's it. It's very off-putting that I do feel really good about this team. We know the offensive line depth has gotten better. Like we know that. We've seen guys step in for injured linemen and succeed, and now pretty good idea that the group that's there is pretty strong. We know at least the front 7 is fairly well loaded. Yeah, a lot of names have left the last 2 years, but there's still a lot of talent that came back in both of those groups.
Oh yeah, and hey, just we didn't say it because that hasn't been the point of the show. Idaho, the Vandals who made the preseason All Big Sky team, we had Nate Azzopardi on the O line, we had Zach Krotzer on the D line, and Isaiah King as a linebacker. So also, just to remind people, Sam Brown's coming back. He was already on the show, like he's a starter. But Julian Lee, who played a starter's role previously at Idaho, he's healthy. So those are, like you talked about the front 7. We just talked about 5 starters, but we're pretty damn happy with where they're at. Yeah. But I guess, not trying to cut you off, but I got a question for you. Of the things you heard in the interviews, tell me the 1 or 2 things that you were most excited or most happy to hear.
I mean, most excited to hear about Cord Dennison. We've been talking about it for it's been 6 months, I guess, at this point, that guy's probably not going to be here for very long. It's a pretty unique circumstance that has allowed him to even be in the position of Idaho defensive coordinator. And again, I don't expect him to be here long. To hear what Sam Brown is continuing to say, that's there's media training. The guys are given points to talk about that do fall in line with the coaches' things. But I mean, you heard Sam say, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say this, and he just ripped right into it. That is number 1, the absolute most exciting thing to me to hear, because I think that's going to not fix problems, because I don't think there were problems about it last year, but we had many discussions about the defense being pretty conservative last year. I don't think we're going to see that this year. And man, hearing Azzopardi talk about the health of the offensive line, man, I knock on wood, that is the second most exciting thing to me. Idaho has not gotten through a healthy year with the offensive line in ever. And yes, it's going to get tested and guys are going to go down. But man, if the line can stay healthy the way it is, right now, preseason, and I know every team can say that, but man, you're building from the trenches. You've got an aggressive defense. At this point, it really doesn't matter. I think who you trot out there at quarterback, you're going to have a good team anyways. Yeah, I think Joshua Wood could be the best quarterback in the conference, and that obviously raises Idaho's ceiling like crazy. But Brian, just to hear the defense is going to be more aggressive. The offensive line should be healthy and deep and growing over the last few years. Man, that's how you set a team up for year in, year out success, rather than catching a one winning season out of 15 years.
Yeah, we're pretty much on the same page. Thinking about Idaho having, if Idaho's O-line can just take that next step, that, oh my God, that there is so many doors that opens offensively for Idaho. Mm-hmm. I'll be able to talk actually a little bit more about this later, because at some point I have an interview with Cody Hawkins that I want to play, because Cody was actually a super interesting interview, and he talked about some points when not asked. He was not asked about Idaho, but he absolutely brought up Idaho and talked about Idaho in a way I found interesting. But what you said about Cord Dennison, and the fact that we may have the kind of defense this season that we're hoping we'd have the last handful of years, that we thought we had after the first 2 weeks in 2024. And just the combination of, if Joshua Wood is 80% of the hype, this is the best quarterback Idaho's had in a long time, paired with the best O-line Idaho's had in a long time, health permitting. That sounds like a pretty fucking good team.
Yeah. I mean, Giovanni McCoy won the Walter Payton, the Jerry Rice with a shell of what the offensive line is going to look like this year. So if Wood can stay healthy, and if he again 80% of what Ford has been preaching, man, this is going to be a pretty good year for the Vandals.
Yeah. I think that's probably a wrap, guys. We're going to be back pretty quick. Our next episode, which will probably be in 2 weeks, we're going to have Jack Hatton from the 1889 Collective on to reintroduce the 1889 Collective. He's been working. I always forget Tommy's last name. It's Jack Hatton plus one other dude. If our crack research team opens their webpage, we'll be able to cover it.
I don't know if my computer can do it, but we'll try.
Anyway, Jack Hatton's going to come on to talk about what he's been doing with the collective. And by the way, like having some younger guys take over putting together the website for 1889 is a game changer for this collective taking off. So Jack Hatton's going to be on pretty quick. And hey, just another spoiler alert. We have told the dudes from 1889, they have an open invite to come on to the show, to just contribute for a few minutes, remind everyone in person. But they're doing awesome work. We want to support. It's important to me to reward people who are doing the type of work you wish they would be, that we could have done. Or when people do the right thing, it's important to reward them for doing the right thing. So that's going to be probably in a couple weeks, and then after that, that's when we get into our Big Sky Conference preview as a whole, talking about some of the stuff we really wanted to talk about today, but just purposely held back on. The week after that, it's our Idaho season preview. The week after that, it's previewing Idaho, Washington State, August 30th. So we're about to be right back into the thick of things on Tubs of the Club. When the season starts, we have our instant, quote unquote, reaction episodes that we do when we can. And then I'll have my Big Sky Conference as a whole power rankings episode. I call it power rankings. It's power rankings for like 3 weeks. Then it's like whatever the hell is interesting in the conference for the rest of the time, where it just hangs around the power rankings. But yeah, Tubs of the Club is essentially your one-stop shop for all the best Idaho coverage plus conference-wide coverage. And then we're going to try to do a couple of short episodes just for fun throughout the week. That's kind of like a me thing for how we can add some more stuff. But that's our plan, guys, is we're going to hit the ground running, kicking ass as quickly as we can. Dallas, anything you want to say before we call it a night?
Patreon.com/Tubs of the Club. Get into the Only Tubs Discord. Best place to hang out and chat Vandal football with other people that want to chat Vandal football. And lastly, it is truly an open offering to Jack Hatton and Tommy Kimmel. If you guys want to come on and talk 1889, the door is always open, because man, what do Brian Martin and I do this for? Because we give a shit about Idaho. And if I can have other people that give a shit about Idaho that are trying to raise money for the athletes to make Idaho better, man, you guys just keep on coming. We're going to inject that right into the veins. So with that said, Brian, go Vandals.
It's a little disappointing to not have Martin here filleting the microphone to call it a day. He'll be back soon, so you guys will get your actual OnlyFans content pretty quick. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals. Bye, Martin. We miss you.